I recently got a chance to test drive and enjoy the new 2025 Tesla Model Y Juniper, and I thought it was an amazing car. I got a chance to see all the quirks and everything that the car came with, all the new technology, all the new things and upgrades that this car brings to the table. And I also got a chance to do a side-by-side comparison between my ongoing Tesla Model Y, which is a 2022 model, and I figured I would show you guys what my thoughts were as far as the side-by-side comparison and if the upgrades are worth upgrading your car from a Tesla Model Y to a new Juniper Tesla Model Y, or if you're in the market hunting for a new Tesla, should you consider the new Model Y or should you consider a used Model Y? Starting with the exterior, I must say that the red on this car looks absolutely stunning. I think the cherry kind of tone, kind of sparkly look just looks so much better. It definitely gives a car a new look. It looks a more updated car. It looks just bigger. It also looks really refined. I also want to point out the aggressiveness of the new Juniper or the new Tesla Model Y. I think it's a much needed addition. I think having the Tesla Model 3 with a different front fascia and the Model Y having a more Cybertruck, Cybercab kind of style definitely gives it a better look because it differentiates both cars, while previously you had both cars looking exactly the same. So if you were looking at a Model Y and a Model 3 from before, you couldn't tell the difference aside from the size. However, with these new two models, you can absolutely tell the difference, and there's a different taste for both of them, which I think it's great. Moving into the interior upgrades, and this is where things get kind of difficult for me to determine. The car looks beautiful on the outside, and the interior is an absolute step up from the current Tesla Model Y. However, every tone in this car is extremely muted to minimalism to the max. So you have a ton of different faux leathers, a ton of different fabrics. There's really a lack of plastic in this new car, which I think is a very welcome addition and upgrade to Tesla, because as we know, Tesla tends to chip out on a lot of things on the interior, and having no exposed plastic just means that your ride is now quieter. It's just more of an uppity kind of feel, and it's a more luxurious interior. It's a more welcoming interior is what I'm trying to say. It felt annoying to me because you have Alcantara, that's gray. You have texture fabric, that's also gray. Most of the interior of the car is black or gray. There's a heavy lack of white stitching or stitching whatsoever, which was a prevalent thing on the older Model Y. And I thought this was kind of annoying because you really can't tell or differentiate between fabrics and textures. And I wish this would have been a little bit better implemented in this new Tesla. I will say that as someone that owns a Tesla Model Y, this is such a comfortable interior. The seats are upgraded, although they do have creaks, which is weird. When I moved my back and forth, I kept hearing this creak, which was kind of weird. I think that having this interior on a Model Y is such a big step up. This feels like a Model X or a Model S. It's just very refined. It feels very luxurious. It feels very comfortable. It feels like a luxury Tesla, which is, I think, what the Y was aiming at doing in the beginning, which felt miserably at doing. But the fact that you have no exposed plastic, no exposed cheap materials, but everything is leather cover or faux leather cover, Alcantara, I think is a great addition, even to the back panels of the seats being covered in leather. This is a big step up for Tesla. I will say that the interior, although being very nice and very comfortable to be in, I want to say that I'm just not completely sold out on it. I think it's a beautiful interior, but so it's my current Tesla's interior, and I just can't quite feel the difference. I got a chance to hop into a Model X a couple of weeks ago, and that was a night and day difference. And I wish I could have felt that with this new edition of Tesla Model Y, as I would have been more prone to saying, I want to buy this car. But as of right now, I just don't see that these upgrades are enough for me to make the switch, especially because the new Tesla Model Y does not have the performance model out yet. So I will be on the lookout for that. And on the side of this being the launch edition, you do have hints of this being the launch edition. They're very subtle, which I think is very nice. I do love the badging on this car. I think it's subtle, yet lets you know that this was the launch edition and you were one of the first ones to get it. Another thing that I wanted to point out is the center console. Now it's fully covered and it has this really cool texture. It's grippy and it feels nice, but it feels kind of cheap. When I closed it and opened it a few times, I started hearing creaks and I didn't like that. My old console doesn't have that. I do like the fact that the cup holders are now covered, which is a really welcome addition. Quickly pointing out, the door handles now have an emergency logo, which I think it's really good. Most people that hopped in this car that have never been on a Tesla never knew what this was for, and they thought that this was the latch. So it was all a situation for me to explain how to exit the car. I'm sure if you guys own a Tesla, you have gone through this same exact situation. Moving into the rear, the seats feel the same. They have a different look, and I've heard in different channels that the seats feel more comfortable, feel better, they feel grippier. They feel exactly the same. I don't know what the difference is. They just look different, but they feel exactly the same. The rear screen is a very welcome addition. You can control pretty much everything on the car from the rear screen, and I think your kids will absolutely love this. I also want to point out that everything in the back is covered in faux leather. Everything is covered in texture, and I think a heavy point to this is the amount of negative feedback that Tesla had because of the amount of plastic that they used, causing a ton of creaks, a ton of noises, unwanted scratches, and you were paying a premium price at the time for a car that just was 90% plastic. Having a whole bunch of fabric, Alcantara, faux leather, just makes the car look very nice, and it's very luxurious and very comfortable, which I think is a great addition. I also quickly want to point out that I was comparing my liner, my ceiling liner to the new one, and everything on this new Tesla is more cushiony. I think this is because of noise reduction, but my liner is a fabric liner, but it's very hard to the touch. So it causes noises when anything hits on it. I also wonder if these are interchangeable parts, because if it is, and I might be doing that on my car to avoid noises and to make the car quieter. But with that being said, this was something that I noticed, that everything just felt more cushiony and nicer to the touch. Moving quickly into the trunk area, and this is where things kind of feel the same. Overall, this car just feels the same, but the trunk area just looks exactly the same. There are a couple of differences. As I mentioned, everything's covered in fabric and nice touches, and everything is just very, very quiet. There is no more plastic anywhere. There's no more sense of rattles or sense of echoing in the rear. Everything is extremely well covered. I will say the parcel shelf is trash. I don't like it. I like mine's better actually. This is all magnetized and it's just trash to me. It's bad. But having this part of the car feel more quieter and just everything more well put together makes this car feel that much better. I also want to point out that the seats are electric, and this is just amazing because I suffer a lot with my Tesla on this aspect. They are also electric, but they just don't fall and come back up with the press of a button. You have to manually do these things. I think this particular edition was a very well thought out edition because it gives the car a more luxurious feel to it. And I think it competes now more into luxury circles rather than a mid-tier car. Walking into the front area, everything looks the same. It is a little bit larger. I cannot tell you what the cubic feet of this is because I didn't measure it. But the two things that I want to point out is that the water reservoir is now in the front. I don't know if that's a little bit more comfortable for you to use. And there's also a drain plug, which, yeah, it's kind of cool to have. My car doesn't have a drain plug, and I never felt the use for a drain plug. But I guess they're trying to compete with the Mackeys on this one. Moving into a little bit of the exterior wheels, I gotta say I love these wheels. It gives me Tesla Model X vibes, but they're very outdated, and I wish they had a different look. I assume that the performance models will come with nicer sets of wheels than this. Now moving into a bit of a more problematic situation with the new Tesla Model Y, and I think this is the part that a lot of you guys will find extremely interesting, is that I found quite a few different things with this car that had problems. The first one, this car has 800 miles. It's brand new, and the seat is already deteriorating. It has creases, it has a whole bunch of folds, and it just looks like it's been driven for 50,000 miles. I will go ahead on a limb and say that my car just turned 50,000 and the seats do not look anywhere near as close as this bad. And I think this is a really bad situation for Tesla because it just shows that even though they have upgraded the quality of a lot of things, they have diminished the quality on some of their more important aspects on the car, such as your seats. I also felt a weird creak or a mushy creak in between the seat while I was driving, and this was extremely uncomfortable. I have heard this from other YouTubers that have noticed the same exact problem, so I assume that this will be one of those issues with Tesla. On a more serious issue, I also noticed that the front camera, that new beautiful camera that you see in the bottom of your car, that camera has a washer, so you are able to click wash on the screen to wash off the camera. I tried testing this washer and unfortunately it didn't work. Again, this is an 800-mile Tesla that just came out of the shop and the camera washer doesn't work. I also went ahead and looked under the car and I noticed that either the hose is disconnected or it's cracked or it's leaking because all the liquid that I tried putting into the camera just ended up going under the car. To me, this is very concerning because one, the quality problems are still very much a thing with Tesla, and two, where is this liquid falling into and what kind of problems will it cause with the car in the future. Something else that I noticed is when I close the lift gate of my Tesla, the Model Y, which is the white one, it's a very smooth, kind of gentle and soft closed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This one, the new one, has it, but it's by far the loudest soft closing that I've heard in any car. Other things that I noticed, the strut bars for the liftgate are different. They are both motorized on the Model Y Juniper versus the Model Y, the current Model Y, that has only one motor in one of them and the other one is just a strut. I also noticed that the placement for the cables is different. So now the drill is not right up top but under, which I think it's kind of cool. I think this is just a different way of doing things, but it's worth noting. Aside from these issues that I noticed, I honestly couldn't see anything else wrong with the car. I did notice quirks such as the strut bars being different. I also went ahead and noticed that even the lock mechanism for the liftgate, it's covered in fabric versus mine. It was not covered. It was just bare plastic, which I think is interesting. It's just showing how much Tesla is trying to care for the quality and also making the car quieter and a more practical drive as well as a more comfortable ride. Something that really bothered me is that on the liftgate or the trunk area, there's a pull tab on my Tesla that's made out of faux leather with white stitching. That looks really cool. You use that to lift up the cover and get access to your trunk's glove box, which is what I call it. And I noticed that on the new one, there's no lever, there's no pulley, there's no pull tab, there's nothing. It's just a cutout, which I think is just a way to cheap out on material. I don't know if it bothers you. I think it sucks that they don't have it anymore. I'm very mad about this. Aside from this, I didn't notice anything else with the car, so everything else seems to be working just perfectly. I love the hardware for cameras. They are much brighter. They seem to be wider as well. And I generally like this particular upgrades on these cars. On a final thought, I believe it's worth noting that these cars are pretty much exactly the same. On the side view, they look exactly the same. You would not be able to tell the difference. The only thing that changes is the front and the back. I do want to answer two questions. One, if you do not own a Tesla, should you get a used Tesla or should you get the new one? And two, if you currently own a Tesla, should you upgrade? If you don't own a Tesla, I would absolutely suggest you try out the Juniper and then try out the ongoing model and decide for yourself what feels better for yourself, your family, as well as your budget. I personally would like to say that I would rather go for the Model Y Juniper simply because it's got all the bells and whistles that a new car would have. If you currently own a Tesla, specifically a Model Y, should you upgrade? Well, that depends. I personally will want to wait for the performance because I have a performance model that comes with all the bells and whistles to that time. So I would assume that the new one would come with even more stuff. I do not foresee myself getting a Juniper anytime soon because I think the Tesla that I have is just as capable and does just as much and has just as many things as the new one. So I don't see how you would want to trade or get a newer Tesla when your regular Tesla or your current Tesla is exactly the same. Not only in the outside, but also in the inside. Aside from a couple of different quirks and a couple of different materials, these cars remain exactly the same. So with that being said, I just do not recommend you upgrading unless you desperately want to have the newest and greatest and you have fear of missing out. Both cars are amazing. They're excellent vehicles to drive. They're excellent software. They have the latest of everything. They both get amazing updates. Hardware 3 is a different situation from hardware 4, but it's really not that much for me to say this is completely different and you should totally go out and get one right now. Instead, I hope you guys enjoyed my video. Hopefully you guys got something out of it and help you maybe make a decision on a new Tesla or a used Tesla. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.